Welcome to Two Mics. My name is Kelvin Moretti. Happy New Year. We've not had this is going to be our first episode this year. Today I'm joined in by Meg to discuss IF, that is intermittent fasting. We hope you're going to have a good time. Meg, Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
So my name is Margaret Gatwiri. I am a clinical nutritionist by profession, and I work at Medanta Africa, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We've been planning to do this podcast for the longest time. It's just that
thank you.
Stars never really aligned.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very important podcast. It's a very important conversation.
Yes.
Why are people so fat these days? What's happening? There's so much. Okay, maybe fat is a bit of a strong word. But why do we have, we seem to have...
rising cases of obesity,
yes, obesity
overweight,
and mlima wa sukari unaitwa nini? Diabetes.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I think the fact that first of all, we are eating excess, calories than our body actually needs. Someone said for overweight and obese cases, you have an excess of everything, an excess of hormones, calories in, and also the quality of food that you're eating is not as good quality as our great-grandparents used to eat. Like, for example, the potassium that's present in the bananas we eat nowadays is not the way it was kitambo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
potassium
also,
must
yeah, because again of the soil quality, increased population,
is
and
it
all
in terms
that.
of quantity or in terms of... because I thought potassium is just K.
Yeah, in terms of the quantity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very minimal. So if in the past one would get, say, for example, 2 units of potassium in one banana, today you'd need 2 bananas to get the same amount of potassium, for example. And that increases your energy intake when you're eating. Anything that you eat. Yeah. Some people,
So I get it. So what you're saying is that for the same nutritional quantity that your body needs, you need a bigger quantity of calories to get the same amount.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and some people think, of course, there are some foods out here that are considered healthy, and so people think if I eat healthy, that doesn't really matter the quantities I'm eating. But anything you put into your mouth, even if it's healthy, gives you calories, gives you energy in form of calories. Yeah. So calories, that's what we call calories. Energy in physics, we learned it's not destroyed but transformed from one form to the other. So in nutrition, when we eat food, we are consuming energy in form of calories.
So it's an issue of people are generally overeating. Well,
there's that, of course, but that doesn't apply to everyone. And also the issue of the kind of bacteria that are present in our gut have everything to do with how we consume energy.
Okay.
Nowadays, what we are consuming, most people are taking antibiotics unnecessarily, and that really kills even the good bacteria. And it takes around 6 months for you to restore the good bacteria.
The killed bacteria.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that's going to be a very interesting podcast for the future for the bacteria. I know you're a businesswoman in the kombucha industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a whole different... The gut is an incredible different topic.
Yeah.
But today I wanted us to look at... something I noticed, there's a trend that has been happening. I know there's all these trends in nutrition, the latest one.
Yeah.
But now there's one that I looked at and I think it piqued my interest because I was talking to my guy in the gym and I was telling him how I want by April to have toned my body properly because that's when I'm turning 30.
Yeah.
I'm very scared for the
aging. Yeah.
So he told me, if you want to be able to get there, and he's an incredibly properly bulked and chilled guy. He's telling me how what really helped him was intermittent fasting.
Okay.
And how he she's been able to employ it in such a way that it balances out. She used to be a bit bulkier, so he had to reduce that extra weight, and he was able to get to the level where he got through intermittent fasting. So I wanted us to talk about it. So, to the layman, what is intermittent fasting?
Yeah. So basically, intermittent fasting is an eating plan that involves alternating eating and fasting. Yeah. So we have different, hours of fasting and eating. So the longer you fast, the more significant the results will be. So you have 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. And there are people who also fast 24 hours. So that when you fast 24 hours, that means that you're eating once a day. I don't know if you've heard of this, OMAD. People talk about, I do OMAD, I do TUMAD. So it's basically, switching between eating and fasting.
Okay.
And when you mean fasting, it doesn't mean during your 16 hours of fasting, you bite an apple and say, I haven't, I'm fasting. But even that one bite of an apple breaks your fasting.
Your fast.
Your fast, yeah.
Actually, because he was very categorical about the idea is to have 0 calories inside your body. Like even a nut, apparently, anything that will cause your insulin to go up, will be able to break your fast. So maybe can you explain to us the significance of insulin, or even better, what happens to your body when you take food and also when you're fasting?
So before I answer that, it's also nice to mention Kitambo, and even for me when I was in campus, I didn't used to, before I knew I would get into this industry of nutrition and clinical and everything, I didn't used to have breakfast, so I would fast and I'd be fine with that. So I think now it has a label to eat, and people do intermittent fasting. So every time that you eat, every time you put anything in your mouth, there's a hormone called insulin that is produced by your pancreas, that goes into the blood. And the work of that insulin is to remove sugar from the blood and take it into your cell so that it gives you energy to do work. And why do you need energy? We usually expend energy through 3 ways. When we are at rest, we call it basal metabolic rate. Your body is burning calories just to keep you alive. You're pumping blood, you're thinking, you're actively listening like now, and that needs energy.
Okay.
And also when you're digesting the food that you're eating, you are also using or burning calories to digest and absorb it. So like proteins and fiber, you burn most calories digesting protein and fiber. That's why it's important every time you eat, make sure you have protein and fiber every time. And when you're also doing activity, for example, when you decide to use the stairs instead of using a lift, you are increasing your energy expenditure. So insulin drives sugar into the cell to give you energy to do all that work. And insulin is not, and that's why insulin and diabetes go hand in hand, because if insulin doesn't do its work of removing sugar from the blood into your cell, you end up having a lot of sugar in the blood. Insulin is not just for removing the sugar into the cell, it's also responsible for fat storage. So the more insulin you have in your blood, the more likely you will accumulate fat.
And actually that's very interesting, because I'm trying to remember, there is this analogy, I think we had discussed it before the podcast began, about the fridge. Essentially, when you eat food, you're storing it inside like your fridge, which is the body. So I don't know. So mind kind of explain to us that, because people don't realize that every food that you take has sugar. It's not just coming from sukari or sugar, little sugar or sugary stuff, but even your ugali, even your meat has a glycogenic. What is it called?
Glycogen.
There's like something index. The index that the quantity of
glycemic index.
Yeah, it has a glycemic index that essentially shows just how much sugar spike it causes on the body.
So there are different. Every food that you eat will affect or impact your sugar level differently, and when sugar level is impacted, so is insulin as well. So remember, when you eat, when sugar goes into the blood, so does insulin. So if your body is used to having a lot of sugar or a spike of blood sugar, then you end up having too much insulin as well. When you have too much insulin in the blood, your brain becomes tolerant to it. We call that insulin resistance. It's like, for example, I don't know if in your primary school, if your beating gets to a point you don't even feel any pain because you're tolerant. You're used to that pain. So the brain becomes tolerant to it, and then that brings insulin resistance, and that's like the first step of diabetes type 2. So diabetes doesn't just happen overnight. And when you have insulin resistance, losing weight is hard for you, because when insulin is present in the blood, it shuts down other hormones that are supposed to be burning fat. So when every time you eat an excess of calories, an excess of energies, the body stores that excess. If you eat excess carbs, excess protein, the body stores that excess as glycogen in the liver. And so when every time you need fuel, so for example, you want to run for 30 minutes, or beat
up your child,
or no, or do some moderate intensity workout, the glycogen will be the quick source of energy. So we call glycogen as an energy boost, and that's the form of fuel that the body uses first before tapping into the fat. So when now the body has depleted glycogen stores during your 30 minutes of maybe moderate walking or whatever, then now after that depletion, now that's when the body goes and taps into the fat. So if in any case you'll have eaten maybe an orange or a fruit after your depletion, then the body won't tap into the fat to fuel you. It's gonna use the sugar, the energy that you've given it.
Okay. So that's why it's very important to make sure that you, in this period that you're fasting, you're essentially making sure that you're essentially making sure that you are utilizing whatever is stored. Because actually the analogy, or the fridge analogy, was you when you eat X amount of calories, you put them in a fridge. Has two compartments. It has a freezer and has a fridge. So in the fridge, it's very accessible, and very easy transactionally accessing and storing. And then assume now the freezer has an infinite amount of storage. So the fridge has an unlimited amount of storage. So when the glycogen amount is completed in the fridge section, it is pushed to the freezer, which you can store absolutely everywhere. It's a fat in your stomach. It's a fat in your face. In your face. In your face. And so essentially what happens is when you're fasting, so the analogy now for fasting becomes that when you're fasting, and especially if you're fasting and you're working out, is that you consume the food in the fridge very quickly, the glycogen, and then now the body is left stranded. What do we do? It now goes to the freezer.
Exactly.
The freezer. And so and the same goes. I don't know how that looks like now. Like, what's the science behind it? And also maybe explain a bit now the science behind now when you're fasting, with in the background of that analogy.
So when you are fasting, it means that you are not you're not giving your blood sugar, and different foods spike sugar differently. So carbohydrates spike sugar the most, followed by protein, and then fats are the least. Fats have the least impact on your sugar levels. That's why if you feel like snacking anything, it's better snacking on plant-based fats instead of instead of even a fruit if you don't want to
fat
break
foods
that.
are the ones that make people fat.
What and also maybe the bad fat maybe because it's an inflammatory food, but healthy fats, plant-based fats will not spike your insulin levels at all, or will have the minimal effect on your sugar levels and insulin as well. And so actually eating plant-based fats or snacking on them might usually will increase your insulin sensitivity, but also it's careful. Remember we talked about anything, as much as it's healthy, it will still give you energy in form of calories, and fats have the highest amount of, like when 1 gram of carbs and protein gives you 4 calories, 1 gram of fat gives you 9 calories. So as much as it doesn't have an effect on your insulin, don't overdo it again, don't overindulge. So when you fast, it means your sugar levels are low, and so is your insulin level. And when your insulin level is low, remember we said as long as you have insulin present in the blood, it's very difficult for you to burn fat even if you're exercising. Why? Because presence of insulin in the blood shuts down other hormones that are responsible for fat burning, like glucagon, for example.
Okay.
So for you to use glycogen, glucagon hormone has to increase, and glucagon is what now converts the glycogen into sugar and fuels you when you're not eating. And so when insulin is low in the blood, then other fat burning hormones like growth hormones increase now.
Okay.
And then when those hormones are high, then you will be able to tap into your fat for that fat to fuel you.
That's very interesting.
So but fats, remember we have different, there's essential, because you also need good fats, as in you need fat in the body as well to survive and to make things. Hormones, all that. And so there's essential fat and the storage fat. So the storage fat is now what you want to tap into it, and the storage fat is usually the subcutaneous fat underneath the whole skin, face and everything, and the visceral fat, which is the most dangerous and the most stubborn kind of fat.
The stomach one.
So now when your insulin is low, so therefore you're able to tap into those kinds of fat. But these essential fats that are in the liver, in your muscle, in the heart, in the digestive systems, those are there to keep your body functioning well.
It's very interesting because now I think so. Essentially, what you're saying is, if you are fasting in this period of in this window of fasting, essentially what you're doing, and by making sure that you've not eaten anything that period, is making sure that your insulin level is low, and your glucagon level is high, so that now you can go hunting. The glucagon can go hunting for fats in all these different places.
Exactly.
That is very, very interesting. So I wanted also to now a bit more now breaking it down a bit, the intermittent fasting. So would you kind of break it down for us how one can be able to do it? I think the most common one is a 16-8, where we have a period of 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of fasting. Maybe break it down for us in a way that someone can be able to do it, and how effective it can be.
So first of all, if you're an individual who eats 3 meals a day and snacks in between breakfast and lunch and dinner, and before going to bed you have a bedtime snack, so maybe the fast kind of fasting for you, because it doesn't make sense if you're doing that now you say now do 24. That's not good. So a first step would be getting rid of these snacks in between the meals. Someone who said small frequent meals throughout the day is good, that's That's the best formula for weight gain, because your insulin is high throughout the entire day. You're not giving your body a break off of insulin. It's high, and when it's high throughout the entire day, chronically, that leads to insulin resistance, and over time, pre-diabetes. And in between this time, of course, you gain weight, and it's difficult for you to lose the weight, and then pre-diabetes, and then diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Now it's the third type of diabetes. So the first step would be removing the snacks, or if you feel like you really must snack on something, snack on a plant-based fat, maybe like a handful of, or half a handful of nuts, walnuts, almonds, and all that. So that would be a practical first step. So the other one, the most common one, and I've been doing this for the longest time, is skipping breakfast, and that doesn't have to work for everyone. So you can have, so if you're having 2 meals a day, then your fasting period, that's probably like 12 plus 6, that's
18
16 to 18
hours of fasting. That's good.
That's hours of fasting. And then now you can eat 2 meals a day. So when you're doing 24 hours of fasting, that's when now you are having 1 meal a day. They call OMAD.
24 4 hours and 20 hours of fasting. There's something I saw that someone, but anyway.
So of course, the longer that you're fasting, the better it is, for your
for your goals.
Your goals. So they say there's what we call autophagy as well. So autophagy is whereby the body sort of eats itself, because you're not giving it, food, and that's it. That ends up healing the body in a way, because again, all these overweight and obesity cases and chronic diseases we're having is because of inflammation of the body, and so that helps to heal the inflammation. Diseases like rheumatoid arthritis are because of inflammation of the body and such. So when you fast for more than 2 days, 2 days or 3 days, that's when now autophagy really increases and it's more significant. And glucagon is the hormone again that initiates that process of autophagy, which also helps to destroy damaged cells and redundant cells as well. So fasting, having a lifestyle of fasting here and there, it's a good idea. So
I saw something somewhere. There is a research that was done on a group of people, and it was the idea of the research was to advise the American government on nutrition and rationing for the American soldiers in the Second World War. So a group of people were given limited calories, and I think so they wanted to see if you give people less calories, and if it what effect it has on the body. And I think, I don't know if I can't remember very clearly, but the control for that would be having someone deprived of calories altogether for a period, and then you feed them. So there's a different experiment that was done, and it showed. Now, these people who were given limited calories, they became weak, they became delirious, they became their muscles started tearing. They were given calories, but limited calories.
Yeah.
But then the people who were deprived of calories and then allowed like a proper meal, even if it's one in 2 days, their bodies essentially became better. And like even someone would have expected it would be delirious, but their concentrations becomes higher, and so what's the science behind the fact that one person, as intuitively you'd expect, at least you amekula some food, this person has taken some food, and so they should have the energy to go around, but you realize the person who's avoided food for a day or two, and then you give them even that during that period of fasting, they seem to have more energy than this other person. What's the science behind that?
Yeah, so when you're fasting, your body is being fueled, mostly by ketone bodies, from the fats. And even science shows that when your brain again is also being fueled by ketones, there's more clarity. And yeah, so, and again, when you're fasting, your body is healing itself as well. So like you're not jump starting the pancreas, even when you have a bite of something, now the pancreas, wakes up, and also the enzymes that are supposed to digest the food as well. And when you restrict, that if you have like a very restricted diet, that's like a form of stress again that you're having on your body. And hormones have a lot to do with our overall health and weight gain and all that. So for example, when now your body is now under that physiological stress, cortisol hormone increases. And when that's like a stress hormone, when that cortisol hormone increases, then it goes to release, sugars for them to go to the blood, and then insulin again increases. It's like a vicious cycle, for example. But when you're fasting altogether, your body heals, especially off of inflammation. And you see how inflammation affects leptin, a hormone that is also very crucial for metabolism and appetite and fat storage. Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, because one of the things that they observed also was that when you're fasting, that and even as you get accustomed to it, you realize that you might feel a bit weak. You realize that you're feeling a bit, angry, but with time you get used to it, and even sometimes you forget that you're hungry. And I think one of the takeaways from that, and also was that hunger sometimes is usually a mindset.
Yeah.
Or even much better put,
Yeah.
it's a biological requirement that is clocked by us. Yeah. Because there's this hormone, maybe you'll explain to us what the name of the hormone is, that they noticed that even when you're fasting, they would, so the cycle of, so there's usually like a cycle of this hormone that makes you feel hungry. And then if you don't pay attention to it, it goes low, and you even forget that you're hungry. Sometimes when I'm working and maybe I'm so busy and I need to take lunch, I will feel hungry. Yeah. And then I'll forget to like, if that when that window period has passed, you forget about it, and you can even take much longer without eating food, because it is apparently a mindset. It's hunger is usually hormone controlled, and you can be able to modulate for that. Can maybe explain a bit about that?
Yeah, so as you're saying, like sometimes in our brains we condition maybe watching with eating, or so that when you're just watching, you feel like, I need to go eat. So it's like, psychology, of eating. But there are two main hormones that usually regulate, eating and satiety. We call them the hunger and satiety hormone. So the satiety hormone is called leptin, and the hunger hormone is called ghrelin. So leptin is what tells your brain we are full and we have energy stores, so let's stop eating, or we don't have to eat really per se. And so this leptin hormone is produced by your fat cells. So the fat cells produce the leptin, and now they signal your brain differently. So they can either signal your brain to increase metabolism and reduce appetite when it's working well, when your brain is sensitive to it. But when your brain is not sensitive to it, it does the opposite, tells your brain, let's increase appetite and reduce metabolism. And so one would think, overweight and obese people are fat, so they have more fat cells, so then why are they still fat.
Shoving things down the throat.
So you can, the same way we become insulin resistant, is the same way you can also get leptin resistance as well. So when you have too many fat cells, you have a lot of leptin hormone that the brain is resistant to its function. So when you eat, the brain doesn't know you're full, so you keep eating even when you're full. And so when your leptin is working properly, and also this is why sometimes it's easy to lose the weight, but it's hard to keep it off, because when you lose the fat, your leptin hormone reduces, and then over time, when the leptin hormone is low, so you increase your appetite and reduce your metabolism. So again, there are ways you can see a nutritionist near you to guide you on ways to, keep your leptin hormone good and being sensitive to your brain. So when you're hungry, again, we have ghrelin hormone, and that hormone is produced by your stomach cells, and it's what tells your brain, Moretti, we are hungry, let's go and eat. And so when you know how to trick the ghrelin hormone, then it can be helpful. Again, as you said, it's, psychology effect, and eating fiber. Every time you're eating soluble fiber, especially. Soluble fiber dissolves in water. So when it dissolves in water, it expands in your stomach and makes your stomach full. So remember that hormone is produced like oats,
okay.
Apples as well, beans. And remember, when you eat that soluble fiber, it won't work without water, because it dissolves in water, and water is what makes it expand and fill you up.
So essentially, the hunger hormone came up also very prominently in the research in Philadelphia of these guys, because they noticed that it's so mapped with our eating patterns. Like the body is just anticipating food, anticipating food. So if you can be able to work in a way such that you are able to ignore it, it's inachanga ujinga, like with time. And it doesn't even know when to could go up. And one of the things also that people don't realize also is that there's a difference between starving and hungry. Starving essentially is when maybe what's the difference between those two, because some people might confuse the two of them. Because starving means essentially you're completely
deprived. So hunger is your brain tells you let's eat, because our stomach is empty and it's time to eat again. And someone said you can't control how you feel, but sometimes you can ignore what you feel. And when you starve is when you're hungry and you don't eat anything when you're hungry, and therefore the body has no choice but to tap into the fats to fuel you. And prolonged starving, again, which is also not good, can deplete your fat stores. And when the fat stores are depleted, then the body goes into protein and uses protein to fuel you. And now here is where you hear of muscle wasting, especially in hospitals. Someone is muscle wasted because their body has now depleted fat stores, and now it's using protein stores.
Okay.
So you don't want to get there, especially if you're working out and doing strength training.
Strength training. Okay, like some of us. I don't know who, Kevin. Some of us, Kina Moretti, but not brag, but some of us do strength training. But anyway, so maybe another question that also I think might be very important is when it comes to someone who wants to do IF, what kind of food would you tell them to take when they're breaking the fast? How is a plate supposed to do you eat a lot? Do you eat kidogo? Or what's the composition of what you're eating? Because like now carbs also are really frowned upon nowadays. It's like a buzzword amongst the nutrition enthusiasts.
So again, there are most people who do IF and don't see any results. It's because they fast, yes, but during their window of eating, now they eat all the calories
They make
and
up.
even more.
They make up for the lost time.
Yeah, and even more than they would have eaten when they were not fasting.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're hungry. It's like you eat breakfast and lunch and dinner all at the same time, and that's not good, really. Yeah, so that you're shocking your body, and that can also create a form of stress in your body and your pancreas as well. So you want to break your fast in a way that is healthy and eat balanced and vitamins and food that will give you vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and all that. Because if your cell is not absorbing what you're eating, well, you're eating, yes, but if it's not absorbing, then it won't really help you. Because remember, what we want to achieve is not just to lose or off the fat, but we want to also be healthy overall. When we deprive ourselves of certain vitamins and we've been fasting all along, then that's not a good thing. We can end up having acute diseases and even chronic sometimes. Yeah, so when you're fasting, during your fasting period, of course, hydrate, drink your water, take some green teas, especially because your body is healing, and you want to take anti-inflammatory foods, like green teas, fruits,
but
vegetables.
Zero calories during the
but zero calories. Yeah, so for example, if you're fasting, you can take green tea. Don't put honey.
Or sugar.
Honey has sugar. Yeah,
or don't even put sugar.
Or don't put sugar or nothing. Yeah, we have different types of sugar that impacts your sugar levels differently in the blood, but altogether they will still break your fast. So do coffee without sugar as well. And hydrate, water too. And then now when you're breaking off, you can start maybe with a fruit, and then the meals that you will eat, your plate, ensure half of it is vegetables and a quarter is protein and the other quarter is carbs. And if you feel like doing maybe 2 snacks, you can throw in plant-based fats in there. Yeah. If it's an egg, you can also consume an egg. Actually, an egg helps to improve your insulin sensitivity, but when it is eaten whole, not when it is egg white only, because that fat, the same way in the plant-based fats, helps to buffer insulin. Yeah, so yeah.
Okay. So and talking about the carbohydrates, there's a lot of bad press around this. I'm trying to remember the name. The wheats. What is it called?
Gluten.
Gluten. Maybe kind of explain to us why there is so much bad press around gluten and chapos and mandazis.
So I'm usually a fan of everything that God created for the human race is good for consumption, yeah?
Except
so me, you won't find me eating, doing keto or whatever, except weed. No. So, but of course, again, we have to admit that the wheat that was being used by our great-grandparents is not the same that we're using now. And so gluten has been shown to cause inflammation. Inflammation is whereby your immune system working against you instead of working for you to protect you. And so there are foods that can actually cause inflammation of the body. Yeah. And some of those foods include gluten, include all the refined carbohydrates we have here, deep fried foods, especially if they've been fried with recycled oil, processed meat, sweetened beverages, sodas, and all that. So again, also breaking your fast with these foods is not a good idea. Yeah, and so gluten is found to be one of those foods that increase inflammation of the body.
Yeah, but should we completely, if someone is on a fitness journey of losing their tummy, is it a good idea to avoid gluten?
To avoid gluten.
Especially the simple carbohydrates. I'm talking about the overprocessed glutens from the chapels and all that.
Yeah. So it's a good idea. Yes. So carbohydrates, we have simple and complex carbohydrates. So you're better off when you eat. Every time you eat a carbohydrate, always go for the alternative of the complex one. Avoid the simple carbs. Yeah. And earlier on, we talked about, so examples like whole bread instead of white bread. I know there's brown bread, but I'm not sure that's good. Yeah. And we have whole chapati instead of white chapati. We have brown rice instead of white rice. And some people also substitute rice for quinoa as well. And quinoa is good because it has high protein and fiber as well. Oats, again, amazing sources of fiber too. Plant-based fats also give you good fiber as well. And plant-based carbohydrate like sources like pumpkins, sweet potatoes, all that. Yeah, so that will help you. Again, remember we said when your body burns more calories digesting fiber, and fiber also feeds your good gut bacteria that ensure you have a diverse of bacteria that prevent you from consuming or extracting a lot of energy from what you're eating. Yeah.
Okay, and then so as we finalize, actually, this is a very interesting episode because I've been honestly very concerned about the eating patterns of Kenyans and how people loosely from HR will think it's fine just to drink cucumber water and wash it down with a mandazi. Like, we are not very conscious about the things that we are putting into our mouths, and I feel like it's very, very important that we watch. I feel like the human beings are some of the animals that eat the most because a lion will just lie there until it's time to eat. But human beings until it's necessary to eat. But then human beings just eat because it's time to eat, and I feel like that's I thought it was very important that we have this episode. So one of the things that maybe we can talk about as we even finalize, what is the science of eating slowly as opposed to eating quickly? Because I saw that if you're also on a journey of cutting some of that weight, is try eating slowly. Yeah.
So when you eat slowly, first of all, eating slowly must start with chewing slowly. Yeah. So chewing slowly helps to break down food into very fine, small particles, and digestion of carbs should be in the mouth, and then protein in the stomach because of the acid. But most times we swallow food before the carbs is digested in the mouth. And so when we chew quickly and even sometimes swallow the food as it is whole, when you swallow, that can really slow down your digestion significantly. So chewing so it's not essentially chewing slowly, because you can chew slowly but not thoroughly. So you chew slowly and thoroughly at the same time, so that you help your body digest food.
Have an easier time.
Help your body.
And then there's also something also that was saying that there was a nutritionist I was in the course of the research of this thing. She was saying that your body takes about, is it 10 or 20 minutes before communicating to your head that you're full. Yeah. So if you eat too quickly,
exactly,
you might end up eating too much food.
Yeah.
More than you needed.
Exactly. Yeah. Remember we talked about leptin hormone. That's the hormone that tells your brain, Moretti, we are full, so let's stop eating. So that hormone takes like 20 minutes for that communication to happen. And so again, as you're saying, that's correct. And so usually encourage people, when you feel like you're 80% full, and that aspect of chewing also helps the hormones and the brain to communicate well. So when you're 80% full, just stop eating. Yeah. because, and when you feel like going to add more food, just wait for 20 minutes and then you'll make that decision after 20 minutes, because if you're 80% now, after 20 minutes you'll be 100% full. If you're 100% now, after 20 minutes you'll be uncomfortably full, and then you add some water and then you go sleep, and then it's just a chaotic night. Yeah.
Becomes the whole thing. And then also there's also something I saw, a trick that also, if you're trying to reduce your calorific intake, you could try eating in smaller plates.
Yeah, that helps. But also it's key for you to maybe visit a nutritionist to help you consume the daily calories that your body actually needs, because we need different calories, because you have different metabolism, different basal when we are stressed and all that. And based on your height and mostly your height. So it's important for you to see one first. So basically a smaller plate helps you feel full from the brain,
filling the brain.
When you use a big plate, even if it's much food, it might not seem like you're going to really, gain satiety. So not too small, just a medium plate, and use that medium, the plate model we talked about, half vegetables, and then that helps you. Most people think it's the carbs that make them full, but that's not true. Tunafikira ugali, sembe ndio itanishibisha. It's the fiber,
so the
soluble fiber. Yeah,
the Luyas.
Yeah.
Light to us. It's a fiber.
It's a fiber. So for example, if your plate has carbs, ugali and beef only, especially if it's the refined ugali, digestion will be quick because there's no fiber. Your stomach will be emptied quickly, and then sugar will spike in the blood quickly, insulin as well, and then you feel, because your stomach is emptied quickly, remember we talked about ghrelin hormone, so you feel you want to add some more food, and then you go add more food. So at the end of the day, you feel hungry quickly, and you've eaten a lot of calories. So if you'd have added vegetables or fiber there, that fiber would have prevented that spike of blood sugar and insulin, and it would have kept you full for longer, and even full for you not to add more of the carbs of the demonized
demonized gluten. Anyway, and then so finally, as we finish, how long would one expect to see results from the IF, from the intermittent fasting? I think that's everyone who's listening might be like, I want to know how fast can I get that beach body.
So anything from 6 weeks and more, but also remember consistency with everything literally is key. So
not easy break weekend.
I'm saying there are people who do OMAD 3 days a week and 2 MAD, and that's fine, because even when you're eating 3 meals a day without snacking, that's also a form of fast. When you're doing 2 MAD, again, so just you can play around with that, and so the idea is to train your body to quickly, when you know you're metabolically healthy, is when you're able to switch quickly to using fats. So the idea is to just train your body to just like that. So when I mean consistency, I don't mean like every day do 1 meal. No. Just that when you're fasting again, don't break the fast and then say you're fasting and you're not really fasting. So that's the idea, just training your brain and your hormones to always behave as you want them to behave.
So the last question, so who do you think should do IF? Who does it work for?
So there's no one size fits all in nutrition, and that's why there's Google, but also there are nutritionists out here. So
is it no Google and then you think you're now an expert?
It doesn't. A nutritionist will help you journey through what works best for your overall health, and so IF, pregnant and lactating women shouldn't do IF because of the demand of energy they need, and nutrients as well. people 18 years and below, again, who are growing up, they need calories to catch up, because they are growing up. They need even more calories than grown-up people.
Person.
Yeah, because they are growing up. People who have kidney issues or any other medical condition, because they need nutrients,
to continuously replenish.
To help them. Yeah,
okay.
People who are admitted in the hospital, their demands for nutrition are high, so you don't want to take your body through that ordeal. If you have a medical issue,
if you're
old as well,
if you're young,
if you're growing up, if you're breastfeeding,
Okay, but I also heard that IF has helped some people with type 2 diabetes.
Well,
I don't know how that is, but I've seen some testimonies of people who are saying they've reduced their medical load.
So
medicinal load, sorry.
Yeah. So
because I think of modulating with the insulin or something. I don't know.
Well, I think that's research that's also underway, honestly, because also patients who are diabetic, especially type 1 diabetic, shouldn't do IF at all.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you're diabetic, it means that your body is not sensitive to, it's not sensitive to insulin. It's not using insulin properly. So yes, you have sugar in the blood, but it doesn't know that. It's not using that. It's using fuel from fats. So there's what we call diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA, that's actually fatal. And it mostly might happen to people with diabetes type 1, but also with type 2, because so in hospitals, patients with type 2 are given insulin, more insulin. So for me, again, it also doesn't make sense why someone is insulin resistant and you're pumping more insulin. So that's what I'm saying. There's, again, more research, because who am I to say that doctors all over Kenya who are using, the world who are using that. So so for at the moment, people who are diabetic, again, consult the doctor and the nutritionist as well that you're seeing, so that you're eating a well-balanced diet and reducing. Yes, you're eating the carbs, but you're not overindulging, because that overindulging is bad. Someone who's not using insulin well can either be hyperglycemic or hypo. And when they're hypo, maybe because of not eating, they can easily, it's actually more dangerous being hypo than being hyper, because when you're hypo, you can easily and quickly die. Because remember, we said you need energy for when you're resting, for your body to keep you alive. So if you don't have energy at all,
to be alive,
you die.
It means death.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much for coming to our podcast today, and I think you have given us some very good, I want to say, framework. But I think, as you mentioned, the details of each person varies. Every person will have to, consult a nutritionist to get a program or to have the questions answered tailored to their situation. So where can someone find you?
Okay, so I'm a consultant at Medanta Africa. So it's opposite Safaricom on Wayaki Way. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you'll find me there. But you can always hit me up. My line is 0711 550 111. And we can plan and see how we journey together. Yeah, because it's a journey.
Social media, where do we find you?
Instagram as Meg, your nutrition therapist.
That is at Meg, your nutrition, therapist. Okay. Sawa. Thank you so much, Manze. I really appreciate, and I hope you guys who are listening are going to put into practice some of these things you've heard. Stop eating too much and eat properly. Eat good food. It's important that you take care of your body, because you're stuck with it for the rest of your life, so you might as well have a good ride with it. Anyway, thank you so much. Till next time. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Kwaherini.